Hi, Anne. How are you doing?
Hi, Rogene. I'm well, thank you. Good to see you.
Wonderful. I like your background. Very, very patriotic of our skyline. That's great. And I want to get going because we want to be able to hear from you and hear about what you're running for and why. So would you mind telling us briefly, what is this position you're running for? I think people know you, but they may not know exactly what the position entails.
I'm running for re-election to the Houston ISD School Board. That's position 7. So there are 9 single-member districts in Houston. I represent District 7, which is north of 59, centered in the Galleria area. It goes east through River Oaks and Montrose, goes up north through Rice Military to grab Lazy Brook and Timber Grove west of the Heights, and then goes west to include Briar Grove, Briar Meadow, and a little bit of Gulfton.
Oh, wow. That's a very busy and big area. That's great. They also may not have known, I know this is a re-election, so you've been in office for a while, but they may not know you personally and your background. Give us a little bit of information about your background and what experience you've had for this position.
Yes, I grew up here in Houston, attended HISD schools, Askew Elementary, then T.H. Rogers, then Bel Air High School. I got an amazing education that allowed me to go study first physics and mathematics at Harvard University, where I was also in the undergraduate teacher education program, and then later public policy when I returned there to get my master's, a second master's degree. In terms of preparation for serving on the school board, I feel like I know Houston well. I'm a product of the school system. Now I'm the mom. I have a kindergarten student in Houston ISD, so I'm a current HISD parent. I also have experience working in our schools. I was a teacher in Houston ISD. I taught at Wisdom High School, where I was Teacher of the Year, Science Department Chair, also at Northside High School. They were called Lee and Davis at the time. And I've also worked as Chief Strategy Officer at Project Grad Houston, helping kids across the city of Houston who are first-generation college-going students to achieve their educational aspirations. So I've experienced working in education across the city, and now over the last 5 years serving on the board, I've been able to put my background in education, public policy, and statistics as well to strengthen our systems for education and HISD.
Sounds like you were very, very well educated and good background for this position. They say, I've heard, that the closer the elected position is to the people, that the more impactful it is. So to me, school board is one of the, I don't want to say lowest level. That's not how it's meant. It's closest to the actual people you're trying to work with. Can you tell us why and how your position as school board is impacting people and parents?
The school board is incredibly important. In the state of Texas, school districts are called ISDs, independent school districts, because they're governed locally by elected volunteers who are from the community and who set the priorities and who name the values for how we want our children to be educated. Education is an investment in our children and in our city's future. So it's incredibly important. Whether you have a child in the system or you don't, it's important to the future of our city. Houston ISD has some of the top schools in the state of Texas and in the country. We also have some schools that have a ways to go that really need to improve so that we're delivering an excellent education in every neighborhood in the city of Houston. So it's important for the families of Houston, and it's important for our city to have an educated workforce. When we think of Houston, we think of the medical center, we think of the Port of Houston, we think of so many industries that depend upon a well-educated workforce. And so if we want our our city of Houston to stay strong for the future, then we need to be investing in education. We have a $2 billion budget, and that's a big investment. It's mostly local property taxes. So it's a big investment that we make in our children in the future, and it's important to get it right.
Absolutely. That's great. Well, you have served in this position for 4 years now, Anne?
5 years, yeah.
5 years. Wow. I know you had you were filling a vacancy when you first got in. Okay.
Correct.
And then a full 4-year term.
Election.
So
Correct.
This will be your second term. Is there a limitation to the number of years you can serve as a school board trustee?
There isn't. There isn't.
Okay.
The trustees on the board are relatively new to service. So everybody running is only running for the second term. There's nobody who's served longer than that.
Okay. Well, in your 5 years that you've served on the board, what would you say has been the greatest improvement in HISD?
I'd point to two things. So first, academically, I would point to growth in our college and career readiness. And I put those two things together because I think in Houston ISD, we've swung the pendulum different ways. For a while, we were very focused on college readiness with the idea that every child would go to a 4-year university. Yeah. And while I think that we absolutely want to prepare every student to go to a 4-year university, if that is their goal, we also need to be preparing students for the option of pursuing a career right out of high school or going to get technical education, an associate's degree or a certification. And my first year on the board in 2017, I led the board in developing goals, academic goals that we wanted to hold our superintendent accountable for. And one of them was college and career readiness. And as a result of that goal setting and making that a priority over these 5 years, we've grown the number of students passing AP exams and IB exams. Those are exams that allow students to earn college credits while they're still in high school by 10%. That's building on prior work in 4-year college readiness. Mm-hmm. But on the career and technical side, we've increased the number of students earning industry-based certifications by 300%. That's tremendous growth in our programs. Students getting certifications as electricians and in welding, Microsoft certification, Office and Suite certifications as well. Really practical tools that they can put to work as a student out of high school, or even if they're working their way through college. It's so much better to be earning your way through college at $30 an hour than at $10 an hour. So that's one area. More on the business side of the district, I would point to improvements in how we use audits. When I first came here, we had a vacancy in our chief audit position. So we hired our chief audit executive, helped oversee the rebuilding of that department. And now the Institute of Internal Auditors has given HISD its highest rating. So we've gone from a department that was almost defunct to one that's really working well to give us information, checks and balances in the district that allow us to improve our budget, to make it more efficient, and to allow us to be continually improving as an organization.
Wow, that was, 5 years is a long time, but that is major accomplishments. Congratulations. And I'm for one that has always felt that we shouldn't just push our young people to college, because that's not always what is right for everybody. And I think I would pay more for a good plumber or auto mechanic than maybe a college graduate. So I'm glad that HISD has broadened its sort of, goals and have a place for all of our kids. That's really important. So what's left, Anne? What would you like to accomplish if elected this time?
Well, let me highlight two things here as well. So the first, I would say, is rebuilding our schools. So we've completed over the last 5 years our 2012 bond, which focused on high schools. And we have some of the most modern high schools in the country, really beautiful. But we need to do the same for our elementary and middle schools. And so running a bond. I don't think we need to raise taxes. I think we can do it without that. But rebuilding our elementary and middle schools in Houston ISD so that those are also modern, like our high schools are. And the second area is expanding early childhood education. So the board we re-upped last year. I mentioned the goals that we set in 2017 and 2020, we renewed our goals. College and career readiness is still there. Special education is there. A new one is early childhood education. We really want to grow programs for pre-K and kindergarten because those programs are so important in helping our kids succeed academically and socially.
So President Biden is trying to push through a bill, Build Back Better, or his social bill plan that does have universal pre-K in it. Will this impact your goal to have more pre-K and early childhood? Will this help it?
Yes, so absolutely. The Build Back Better plan has kind of a diverse model for making sure that there is funding and support for early childhood education and for childcare for parents of young children. So that 0 to 5 space. And I certainly think as that bill is fleshed out, we're going to see greater support for our school systems as well. So absolutely, that will be helpful to us.
In case it doesn't get passed and that money doesn't flow down, how would we be able to pay for this?
Currently, Houston ISD offers full day pre-kindergarten. So
in every school, Anne?
Not at every school, but everywhere where we do offer pre-kindergarten, and it is most elementary schools. And then we have early childhood centers where the entire school is pre-kindergarten. So we have pre-K 4 at most elementary schools in Houston ISD. I'd like to see us expand our pre-K 3 as well, and to really work on improving the quality of those programs. So a goal that we've set is increasing the number of teachers, the number of adults in those classrooms. So we can bring down the ratio, the child teacher ratio to 12 to 1, so that in those young years, our kids get more of a focus. So we currently pay for that out of, we've allocated dollars for that out of Title I funds, out of just our general educational allocation. House Bill 3, which was passed in 2019, provided additional dollars for early childhood education. But even ahead of that, HISD has been offering full day pre-K, where our neighboring districts often only did half day pre-K. So HISD has been a leader in recognizing that full day pre-K is important for the children. It's important for the parents too, who are trying to figure out how to work while they're also delivering a strong educational foundation for their children.
Okay, so we've been able to cover it through our budget as is. Do we charge a fee to parents at all?
Kindergarten is free to all parents in the state of Texas. For pre-K, we do charge a fee. It's pretty affordable compared to other private providers in the city of Houston. For families below a certain income level, pre-K is free. But for parents who want tuition-based pre-K, they have to pay. And so I think where Biden's bill would help is it would help to make it free for more families.
Okay, that's good. Well, money's always an issue, but that's great that HISD has been covering, and full day especially, because even half day, it doesn't help sometimes working parents. Makes it hard. So Anne, you've had an opportunity to share with us, and it's been very impressive, the things that you and your colleagues have been able to accomplish over the last, say, 5 years. What, in addition to what you've done, what else makes you best qualified for this position, and why should someone vote for you over your opponent? Because this is a runoff. So I guess you're up against one other person in the position. Okay. So tell us, why should we vote for you?
Well, I would point to a mix of my life experience, which includes being a student in Houston ISD from elementary school all the way through high school, and then now being a parent. I'm currently a parent in Houston ISD, and I'm the only candidate in this race who is.
Okay.
So I am personally affected by the decisions that we make as a school board, and have a stake for the next 12 years in how our schools go, our personal stake. Of course, we all have a stake in the future of our city, as I've said. I point to my professional training. I'm the only candidate in this race. Actually, I'm the only seated trustee with quantitative training. And that comes into play a lot of times in our policy work, because we're measuring students' achievements and looking at charts and graphs and student data all the time as trustees. And as the only my degrees were in physics and mathematics, my first two degrees. And as the only person with training, that kind of quantitative training, it allows me to better hold our superintendent accountable. It allows me to really lead the board as we're developing new metrics for our superintendent evaluation, for the way we communicate to the public about our progress towards our goals. And I think that's important. So I would point to my training as a mathematician, as a scientist, as an educator, and then also in public policy. I draw on that all the time as a trustee. And then finally, I would say my experience over the last 4 to 5 years, my work has been focused on building systems for excellence. And that's on the budget side in Houston IC, making our budget more efficient, bringing in improved audit processes, both internal audits and then also external audits. We brought in the Legislative Budget Board. We work with an external auditor every year to review HISD's finances and practice and business practices to make sure we're continually improving. And then on the academic side, really building systems of oversight to improve college and career readiness, special education, early childhood education, literacy, and mathematics. Those are areas that I've helped to lead our board on, and that I think that experience, that continued expertise is important on our board, because we want to continue to support our new superintendent. He's only been here 5 months, and he needs experienced trustees to continue to support his work and hold him accountable for giving our children the education they deserve.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned him, because you hadn't thus far, and I did want to insert that, because that was quite an accomplishment for the board to find a qualified person and bring him on. And it sounds like he's fitting in pretty well. I haven't met him personally, but the things I've seen have been good. So I hope all of that goes well. I think that gives us some continuity and stability to have someone like that. The other thing that we didn't talk about, Anne, if you wouldn't mind just addressing it, is the whole state oversight. How are we doing there, and what do you see happening?
Yeah, Houston ISD, I think having hired a new superintendent, Superintendent Millard House, is in a really good position. We are very impressed. He was brought into HISD with a unanimous 9-0 vote by our board. We're very impressed with Superintendent House. From what I hear, the Texas Education Agency is really impressed by Millard House as well.
Good.
So I think, our focus as trustees is the education of our kids. I think Superintendent House just rolled out 5 key priorities that are going to allow him to achieve the board goals that I've discussed a little bit in this interview. And he's working on developing a strategic plan. I think all of that shows how focused HISD is on making sure we're delivering the education we need to our students. And I think that puts us in a good position in terms of our relationships with the state right now.
Is there a chance within the next year or two that they will remove this, whatever they're doing, hand holding? I don't know.
We are in the courts right now. And so far in terms of state takeover, in terms of masks. Houston ISD has won so far in the courts. I would love for us to be able to come to some kind of a negotiated settlement so that we can spend less resources, both from the state side and from the district side on legal fees, and work together for our kids. That's what I've told, Commissioner Morath every time I've seen him. How can we just be more collaborative and focus on our kids? And that's where I hope we get to.
Well, hopefully the pieces are in place that they are looking at that will give them confidence that our school district is on its way, and they'll cut this thing loose, because I know it's an albatross on our necks to have that weighing down on us. Like you say, you can concentrate on so many other things. And there's one other thing I wanted to bring up. I watch a lot of news, and I see other school districts in Texas as well as, in the country. And they seem to have a lot of disruption and division and all that. And I'm glad to see we don't seem to experience that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Are you referring, school board meetings have been in the news
board meetings
recently? Yes, with the public sometimes we've had in Houston ISD for the last few months, we've reopened our school board meetings to the public, just as we've reopened our schools for successfully for students to come in person this fall. And we have had speakers come to speak to us in favor of what HISD is doing. I've supported our superintendent in his decision to require masking as schools open this fall with the big spike of the Delta variant in the Houston area. I think that was the right call in order to keep our kids safe and not have to shut down schools because of outbreaks, which we've seen in some other districts in Texas. And people have come to speak to us in favor of that decision. People have come to oppose that decision. I think so far our meetings have been relatively calm and respectful. We have had a long history in Houston ISD of allowing public comment, and we just encourage everybody to come and do so respectfully. And we listen to, the experiences and the perspectives that each individual brings, whether it's in favor or opposed. So far that's worked for us.
Well, I cross my fingers it continues, because I know it's easy for that to kind of happen if the audience or parents or whoever comes to speak doesn't have confidence or doesn't feel like they have the opportunity to speak up. And that may be the secret, is they feel that they can speak up, even though it may be on a different opinion or something, and that's healthy. So that's great. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we bring this to a close? Anything you want to share with our listeners?
Just like to emphasize, as you've mentioned, Rogene, how important it is. Our school systems are our investment in the future of our city. And every registered voter can vote in this election. Sometimes people think, oh, if I'm not a parent in Houston ISD, or if my kids have grown up, then I can't vote in a school board election. That's not the case. Anyone who's registered to vote in Harris County can vote. I encourage you to vote in school board elections, because the future of our city is at stake. And school board elections can be very close. So never think that your vote doesn't count. In 2016, I was elected by a margin of 37 votes in a December runoff. So whether you are a parent in HISD or not, whether you voted in November or not, if you just didn't get around to it in November, well, you can get around to it in December.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world. You've done such a great service for all of us. Even though I don't live in your district, I benefit, all of us benefit from the good work that you and the other school board members do. So keep it up, and best of luck to you in the runoff.
Thank you so much, Rogene. And the polling locations you can find at harrisvotes.com.
That's right. harrisvotes.com. Easy to remember. Okay, well, thank you all. I hope you will take your opportunity to vote in the runoff election, and we will hopefully see you soon, and we'll see Anne hopefully again real soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogene. Thanks, Kevin.